as crazy as all this sounds, fascists trying to go to war on Hitler's side, etc., about 5 years ago, Moshe Arens, who had later is a former foreign minister and defense minister of the Israeli government, actually wrote an article which I found in the New York Sun, a daily newspaper, saying, look, isn't it time to forget about the fact, that we were pro-fascists, etc. And, I know you guys used to say we were fascists and all that, but it's time to drop it. Look, you've heard of Holocaust revisionism, like Ahmadinejad in Iran, etc. It was only 1 million Jews who were killed, that kind of stuff. Calling for a former defense minister of Israel to tell people that you shouldn't call us fascists anymore. That's Zionist Holocaust denial.
Let me go into one more document. It's a Rezo Kosnar, I'm probably mispronouncing his name, the report of the Budapest Jewish Rescue Committee. What was that about?
Now, again, as I emphasize, Eichmann had gone to Palestine as the guest of the Labour Zionists in 1937 and spoke Hebrew and all that kind of stuff. When Germany got into Hungary, Hungary was an ally of Germany during the reactionary regime was an ally of Germany during World War II. One of the first things that he did was he went to Rishu Kastner, who was one of the Labour Zionist leaders in Hungary, and said, okay, let's do a deal. Because, he knew from experience that Labour Zionists would do this kind of a deal. And what he did was, he said, look, you send one of your guys, I'll let you send one of your guys from Hungary to Istanbul in Turkey to negotiate with the Zionist movement there, and with the Zionists in Palestine and the British and the Americans. What I want is for the British and Americans to give us, the Germans, 10,000 trucks, which we'll only use against the Soviets, in return for which you can have all the Jews in Hungary. Now, this is absurd. In other words, when the British heard about it, they said, throw that right in the garbage. They were not about, they're allied to the Soviet Union, they're not about to do this. But the deal to make all this sound sweet to Kastner, who Eichmann is negotiating with, what he did was he said, look, right now I'll let you send a trainload of Jews to Switzerland to show that I'm not playing a game with you, okay? So he sent about 2,000 Jews, Kastner he picked 2,000 Jews and sent them to Switzerland, okay? After the war, he wrote up the whole episode in a thing called the Bericht in German, because understand, nobody speaks Magyar, the Hungarian language, except Hungarians, okay? And he didn't speak English, so he wrote it in German. And it was sent, it was put in the archives in Israel. But then what happened was that a Hungarian Jew accused Kastner of collaborating with the Nazis in Israel.
Why? What would be bad about bringing 2,000 Jews to Switzerland?
Well, in return for which, Kastner didn't tell the other Jews that the other trains were going to Auschwitz. You get my point, all right? So one of the Jews who managed somehow to survive, when he got to Israel and he discovered Kastner was there, he wrote an article in a Magyar language newspaper accusing Kastner of collaborating. And Kastner got the Israeli government to sue the guy for libel, okay, on his behalf. Only it turned into a disaster, and the judge in the hearing said, after a trial, no, he collaborated for sure. Okay, what then happened was Kastner appealed the verdict against him. All right, while it was still before the court, in other words, before the High Court of Israel ruled on the appeal, Kastner was assassinated by a rival Zionist group, by Zionist revisionists, no less. Okay, but since he was assassinated, the Israeli Supreme Court felt we have to be fair to him and review the case as if he were alive. So they ruled that technically he was not a collaborator because there was no he didn't violate any rule or law, defining what a collaborator was. But this is the same court in the same decision. He was guilty of writing an affidavit on behalf of one of the Nazis in Eichmann's group there when the guy was put on trial at Nuremberg.
Let me go back a step. The big thing what he was doing, he's rescuing 1,000, 2,000 people, but he's not telling or warning the others.
Right.
If they had been warned, would it have made a difference?
Yes, because by that time it was obvious that Germany was going to lose the war, which meant that there were all kinds of people in Hungary who would have said, sure, you can hang, Harry, you can hang out in my house. I mean, that kind of thing went on all over Europe, and particularly since the Hungarian government wasn't popular, there were a lot of Hungarians who would have done it. Now, I'm not saying that all of the Jews would have been saved,
How many Hungarian Jews perished, approximately?
Well, let's say 400,000. But, don't hold me to the exact number, but hundreds of thousands, okay? They were the last major group to be shipped over there to Poland.
All right, look, my last couple questions. Let's say, devil's advocate. If you were going to write a book, Zionist fights against the Nazis in the 30s and 40s, what would you have written about?
One of the things that I say in defense of my book, Zionism in the Age of the Dictators and 51 Documents, is exactly that. Where's the Zionist book on how they fought the Nazis? The only thing that the Zionists did in the way of fighting the Nazis was, about 1943, the British Army organized about 5,000 Zionists from Palestine into a Jewish unit of the British Army. And they fought in the British Army in Italy. Okay. Now, they must have fought the Germans at some point, but the British were very reluctant to use them because they figured, listen, if the Nazis realize that this unit is all Jews, they'll go after them more than after us, and they wouldn't do us any good. So they were there, but that's it. That amounts to it. Now, individual Zionists, of course, fought in the American Army, the British Army, whatever, and the actual leader of the organization that in the Warsaw Ghetto that combined the labor Zionists, the communists, and the Bund, which was a Yiddish socialist organization, was a labor Zionist named Mordechai Anielewicz. So, individual Zionists fought, okay?